Hey folks, so following on from my last week's video, aperture and depth of field, something else that used to get me stumped was the shutter speed rule. Shutter speed rule is when your shutter speed should equal your focal length of your lens. So for example, I have my 40mm on my Nikon here at the moment, and what that means is that my base shutter speed for that lens when I'm taking photographs should be 1 over the focal length. So 1 over 40 equals 1/40th of a second. Now that's an old rule. I don't want to have movement in most of my shots. So I would never use a shutter speed that low. An extension to the rule is 2 over your shutter speed. So instead of 1/40th of a second for my 40mm lens, it would be 1/80th of a second. But for me, again, that's still too slow. And I have a couple of examples here I'm going to show you. If you were to follow the shutter speed rule, what would happen to your photographs? So here in this first one, my main focus was obviously the tree in the middle of the frame. Now I am currently at 1/40th of a second. I'm at 5.6 ISO 100. Now it was like a crazy bright day, so I knew that I didn't need any more than my ISO 100. So as you can see in this photograph, it is totally overexposed. My tree is in focus, but you can also see here, now it was a crazy windy day, but you can also see that there is movement here in all the leaves at 1/40th of a second. This one that was at 1/80th of a second, it's definitely closer to the right exposure value, but you can also see up here in the whites that it's blown out. It's just pure white. There is a little bit of blue in the sky, and you will see that on the next shot, but this is definitely closer to where it should be, but just not 100%. I should say also that I was shooting in manual mode, so when you're in manual mode, you will have your exposure compensation graph on your camera, and in manual mode it will tell you when you are at the correct exposure. Aperture priority and shutter priority, just so you know, do not show you. So I knew that I was definitely closer to the correct settings. And then if we go on to the next one, so here we have, as you can see, shadows are a lot better. There's more dynamic range in the photograph. You can see that the blue in the sky is coming through. Image is sharp and in focus, and you can see the difference that the leaves again are a lot better. And that was 1/160th of a second, 5.6 and ISO 100. And if I show the tree, clearly see here in the middle we have totally overexposed. A lot better on the right, but still just a little bright. And then on the left at 160th of a second, much better, and exposure is correct. So then also, just for the sake of showing you, let's say you wanted a nice creamy blur in the background. I've obviously gone to the extreme here and going all the way to f2. But again, it's just to try and help let you see that, in my opinion, forget about the shutter speed rule. That's all I'm going to say. So on this one here, we have 1/40th of a second, f2.0 and ISO 100. And as you can see, the image is complete waste. So for me to get the exposure that I needed at f2, which is this one here, I had to go to 1/1250th of a second to get the correct exposure. So what I did in essence was, because I was at f2 and I had my aperture wide open, letting in the maximum amount of light that my lens will allow, I was at ISO 100 so that I was keeping that low and that's all I needed, so that wasn't going to let in more light than was necessary. And then I had to raise my shutter speed to compensate for the wide open aperture. So here's my summary of what that was all about, basically. Don't forget that the shutter rule is not a rule, it's merely a guideline. And you should set your shutter speed to whatever it needs to be for you to get the correct exposure that you want and gets you to photograph. Also remember that you don't always have to stop down to your widest aperture to get a nice blurred soft background. If stopping down all the way is what you want to do, your choices pretty much are going to be you either gotta crank that shutter speed up. You could maybe try use an ND filter. Just make sure that it doesn't send your ISO or ISO, whichever way you say it, sky high, because you also want to make sure that you avoid noise in your photographs. Remember, it's basically all about balance. If you have your low aperture number, you're going to have to move your shutter speed faster. And if you're using a narrower aperture, higher f-stop number, you may well have to decrease your shutter speed. So like the best thing to do is just get out there and practice. Practice. My next video that I have coming out is going to be about the exposure triangle, and I am going to deep dive into the settings, how they affect each other, and hopefully give you a better understanding, and you can walk away a lot more confident in what you're doing. So make sure and hit that subscribe button and you get a notification of when that video appears, and if you're inclined to do so, give this one a like, and I'll talk to you later.